for the Joan Quinn Profiles. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, LA Style, and Detour magazines, Joan covered the social set, the Hollywood hotshots, the international art scene, the mysteries of food, the excitement of travel, and the fabulous world of fashion. Joan continues to find creative people on the cutting edge who make things happen. Here's Joan Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Waiting to be profiled are author Terri Cheney and Hollywood Arts Council Director Nyla Arslanian. Author, attorney Terri Cheney was born and raised in Los Angeles. She graduated from Vassar and went on to the UCLA School of Law. After several years of private practice, she now devotes her talents to causes of mental illness. She works with groups at UCLA and with people all over the city of LA. Terri, what kind of practice did you leave, or were you in, should I say?
I was an entertainment litigator, so
you were a litigator?
I was a litigator, right.
So you had a good voice of gab.
Yes, I learned how to do that.
And what kind of, if it was entertainment, what kind of clients did you have?
A lot from the record business and also from the major motion picture studios. Some of my clients included Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones, Lionel Richie, LL Cool J.
So would that be after, to actually go to court with them or for them?
Yes.
Is that what it would be?
For trials, yes. For preparing for trials and then going to trial, although that didn't happen very often, that you would go to trial.
That you would actually settle your case then?
Usually they settled, yes.
So involved in that is a lot of writing.
Yes.
Trial.
Yes.
Is a lot of writing. Were you actually, when you were writing, thinking about writing a memoir because you wrote Manic? A memoir?
Well, I didn't think about writing a memoir, but all my life I thought of writing. Since I could breathe, I thought of writing. I always wanted to be a writer.
And you took writing classes?
Yes, I was in writing groups for quite a long time. I still am in 2 groups.
And you are?
Yes, and I love writing groups. They're great. They give you discipline. And
But the thing is, you're writing in a writing group, and they're criticizing you, right?
Well, we call it feedback.
Oh, is that is that what happens? I mean, and you have to write at a certain time, and you have to have so much written between groups, right?
It can be very hard when you're employed. Yes.
Does everyone do that in the writing group?
Yes,
I mean,
it's
they get
pretty
it done?
impressive. Yeah, some writing groups require more pages than others, but sometimes you write just in the group and you read there in the group, and that can be really challenging too.
And you can do that? People can do that?
You learn how to do it. Yeah, it's very hard, but you learn how to do it, and it can be the most rewarding thing imaginable.
How and what motivated you to write this book? It's called Manic. It's a memoir.
Correct.
And
well, I was in the hospital at UCLA for very severe depression, and this was in 1999, and I looked around me. I saw that nobody was getting better because they couldn't talk about what was going on with them. They couldn't explain what was happening to them. And I thought there really needs to be a book that talks about manic depression from the inside out, that goes into a manic depressive's head and talks about what is going on there and into their body. So that's when I started writing Manic.
What were you doing? How were you writing it? Because it jumps all over the place. It starts with chapter 1 that's someplace else in your life. In fact, chapter 1 to me, I don't have my glasses on, but it says, wait, let me find it, because it was just like shocking. It starts out and it says, I didn't tell anyone I was going to Santa Fe to kill myself. I mean, how do you start? You start your book like that?
Well, I didn't. That ultimately became the first sentence. When I was writing the book, I did jump all over the place because my mind was jumping all over the place, and I don't live chronologically like most people. I live by mood. So I wanted the book to mirror a manic depressive's experience from mania to depression to hypomania to a mixed state and back again to depression, and so I wanted it to jump all over.
And then we get to chapter 11 talking about jumping over, and it says, I hadn't planned on being manic.
Right. Well,
so there you are. You start with, I'm going to kill myself, and almost to the end you're saying, I didn't plan on being manic.
Right.
And in between,
it's all over the place.
it's a rocky ride.
It's a roller coaster, but that's how mania and depression feel. I mean, you don't plan on what your next mood state's going to be. It just takes over.
So how did you remember some of the things that you wrote about? Because you talk about blacking out in so many instances.
That was the hardest part of writing the book. I do have some memory problems from having electroshock therapy in 1994, and that did take some of my memory away, unfortunately.
But is electroshock, do they still do it today?
In fact, it's much better today than it was when I did it. It now is only focused on one area of the brain, so less impact is had on memory.
And what happens? How do they think that you're ready for, what do they call it,
ECT, correct.
ECT?
Well, I was so depressed and no medication had helped, and I'd been in therapy for many years, so there really wasn't a choice at my point that I did it.
Would you do it again?
That's a really tough question. I'm not sure if I would do it again because of the impact it had on my memory.
That's what I mean.
But I try to forgive myself for having made that choice at the time because it's the only thing I could do.
But you made the choice. The doctors don't tell you have to do that. And to what point do you get where they say you have to do that?
I think you have to be very depressed and have been on every medication available. I tried medications even in Europe, and they just didn't work. Nothing would beat the depression.
Like what kind of medications? 2 or 3 pills at a time?
No, we're talking maybe, I would take maybe 30 pills at a time. It was
a
lot.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, it was a lot.
It was a lot of pills, yeah.
So those, obviously, even if they were trying to balance you, were changing your mind and your memory and all of that. So I'm back to that question. How did you remember all that?
I think in the process of writing, a lot of it became clearer to me. It was like, I think I mentioned in one of the stories that sometimes with mania you forget things or you don't know what you're doing, so you have to piece things together through the sales receipts. And I did a lot of that. I would look at old photos, I would look at old papers, and memories would start coming back to me eventually.
So you knew you weren't normal, right?
Correct.
and how do you know you're not normal? I mean, a lot of us have, I read this, I mean, we all have a lot of those symptoms that you talk about.
Well,
don't you think?
I have this theory that everybody's a little bipolar. I think they are. I think we all have mood swings. Of course, with true manic depression, they're extreme and they're more, they last longer.
And how long is lasting longer?
Well, I mean, they last, for many people, they last several months at a time.
Oh,
That isn't the case for me. I'm what they call a rapid cycler. So for me, it can last, mania maybe will last 4 days, and then depression 3, and then 4 days and 3 days. So I cycle very rapidly.
But the good part of that is you could keep it from people.
Well,
because it was so short a period.
Well, the problem though was that the consequences weren't so easy to keep from people. For example, spending all my money or flirting with my, my best friend's boyfriend. Those consequences lasted and throughout my life. They didn't go away just when the mania stopped.
But, quote, normal people do those things.
Right, that's true.
So that's why it's such a fine line. Reading all the way through, I saw so many people I knew, and you see yourself too.
Well, nothing makes me happier than to hear that, because that shows me that the book has a universal appeal.
But, you talk about one of the things you did, you get everything done, you work late, you reach your goals.
Right.
You're like overworking.
Overachieve. Yeah.
Overachieving.
Yes.
And you did all through Vassar, you did
Yes.
through high school, I guess?
Yes.
What about law school?
Law school was a different story. Law school, the depression took hold of me and didn't let go. And I didn't get out of bed for 3 years, it felt like. I just didn't go to class. I showed up for the exams, but I didn't go to class.
But so how talented are you that you don't go to class and you?
I am so lucky.
That's really something. But one of the things that really brought you down so that you would feel like you were like everyone else was your time in jail.
Yes, that was horrible.
Tell me about that.
Well, I was arrested for making a wrong left turn, and I had prescription medication in my car at the time, and You can be arrested for driving under the influence of prescription medication, just like
Oh,
drugs or alcohol. So I was arrested and put in jail, and they weren't allowing me to take my medication. So unfortunately, I got manic, and I got very snippy with the police officers, and they ended up beating me.
Oh, they
And
did?
yeah, it was horrible. They beat me.
And then you went into the hospital.
Yes.
And one of the, tell us a little bit about that, because I think one of the things, as you said, you learned never to stare at a paranoid schizophrenic.
Never stare at a paranoid schizophrenic. Yes.
How do you even know that that person is like that?
Well, things in the hospital, it's like a different country. I mean, you go, it's like going to France if you don't speak French. You pick up clues and you learn survival tips pretty quickly. It's pretty scary.
What else, with all different kinds of people were thrown together there?
Sure, there were bipolar people, there were just depressed people, there were people that didn't have a diagnosis, so there were several schizophrenics. There were a lot of diagnoses that day, yeah.
You talk about the black beast.
Depression is the black beast, yes.
Depression is the black beast?
Yes.
I love the part at the end, well, it's like the end before you actually come out and write your memoir about being at a cocktail party, and you don't want to go into the party, and you're saying, what am I going to do? Well, I'll just be honest and go in and talk to him. And what do?
Well, I go up to the bathroom for most of the party. I spend in the bathroom, just agonizing over what am I going to say to people if I'm not a lawyer anymore? What am I going to say? Who am I going to be?
Because they were all professional.
They were all. This was a Hollywood party, and they all had their gigs. And I just really had been so used to introducing myself to people with my business card, and I wasn't practicing anymore. So I wanted to just say, I'm manic depressive, and sure enough, I did, and it was the most amazing response. People were curious and interested and fascinated and kind about it.
But people also had their own experiences. My brother's this way, my friend.
Absolutely. That's been the most amazing thing about the book. Everybody seems to have a connection to this disorder.
So now that you're not practicing anymore, how are you helping other people? I know you work with support groups.
I am facilitating a support group at UCLA for dual diagnosis. That's for people with a mental illness and a substance abuse, and that's a really huge part of the population.
Yeah, but if you're mentally ill, as you said, you
Yes.
take 30 pills. I mean, not everybody, but you take pills. So that's substance abuse in a way, isn't it?
No, I think if you're taking under a doctor's prescription and you really have a good communication with the doctor, I don't think that's substance abuse.
You can't, it's a different kind of thing.
Yeah,
but they
because-
stop you in the street. You
Well,
said they can stop you in your car.
That's a glitch in the system as far as I'm concerned, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
reading through this and looking at you with your red hair, is Manic going to be a movie?
I'm hoping, my agent is hoping, we're all hoping that
But you have
that
so
will
many
happen.
connections.
Yeah, but you know, you're out of the business for a few years and you don't really have the same phone numbers. So I'm just hoping the book does well, and then we'll see what happens with the film.
Have you cast it?
Not in
I
my
cast
head.
it.
Who do you think?
I cast Susan Sarandon
Oh,
for your role.
she'd be great.
Wouldn't she? What else
She'd
do
be
you
great.
think?
I think Maggie Gyllenhaal would be terrific. I think she's
Really?
a strong young actress, and I think she'd be great. Yeah.
Well, we'll look for the movie.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Joan.
And thanks for watching this part of the show. We'll be right back with Nyla Arslanian. I love Lorraine. Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and we're back with Nyla Arslanian, the president of the Hollywood Arts Council. Nyla was born and raised in Los Angeles and graduated from Immaculate Heart College. She's the editor-in-chief of the Discover Hollywood magazine. And for the last 30 years, she's initiated, as a member of this council, a number of interesting projects. I just gave it away that it was 30 years old, but when was it founded and why?
Well, the actual date was March 18th, 1978.
Oh, I see.
So
and you weren't one of the founders?
I was not one of the founders, but I came in very, very early to the organization.
Did it take a long time to build up the membership?
Yes, it did take a while. You know, establishing a nonprofit organization, bringing in a group of people who agree to form an arts council but may not agree in the process takes time, and people have to and commitment.
And why did they start an arts council?
Well, at that time, this was 30 years ago, and now we hear a lot of great things about what's happening in Hollywood, the renaissance of Hollywood, the Hollywood the place.
But were you part of that? You must have been part of it.
Was part of it,
Yeah.
and that's why we were formed. The Arts Council was formed so that the arts would play a significant role in the redevelopment of Hollywood.
Oh, I see. But that started that long ago?
It started that long ago. It did actually. There was an initial group that we thought that the arts should maybe have a subcommittee to, that was called the Hollywood Revitalization Committee.
Oh, I see.
And their then executive director said, you know, I think you should form your own nonprofit. That might be a better way to go. And one thing led to another. That group was disbanded, and the Arts Council went on, and now here we are 30 years later.
Oh, I see. So that all took place that long ago?
Yes, it did.
Well, one thing that something like yours does, Cultural Council, is it adds to the tourism aspect of the city, I would imagine.
Well, it certainly does, and one of the premises of the Hollywood Arts Council was that, and this continues to today, was that Hollywood, again, Hollywood the place, a specific area. We do deal with Hollywood the industry and Hollywood the illusion and the fantasy, but we're talking Hollywood as a geographic, and I always go like this because of certain boundaries.
But that's so true, because Hollywood the fantasy, you don't walk down Hollywood Boulevard and see stars walking by. You might see stars in the sidewalk, right?
But Hollywood is live theater as for all these theater years, or these 30 years, in the down times and now the good times, live theater has been alive and very, very well, and really a foundation of our community.
One of the things is it unites the community.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I think what you're talking about, the way it unites us is through theater, through what other ways?
Well, so many different ways. I was once asked, what are the arts in Hollywood? And I said, well, the arts in Hollywood is the sign up on the hill, which if it was built today, it would have been a public art project. It wouldn't have been an advertising sign. It would have been a public art project. To the stars on the sidewalk, the same thing. That was done as a sort of a promotion thing for the business. But if it was done today, that would be a public art project. So the sign on the hill, the stars on the sidewalk, and everything in between. We had a brainstorming session once with our board and said, well, what are the arts in Hollywood? And of course you come theater and the fine arts and dance and cinema and everything that entails the film industry. But then people said, well, but then we have these wonderful palm trees. And we went on for one thing to another, bouncing off, and that's why I said we really look at Hollywood as itself is almost an art form.
And you do a lot, since you are a charitable group, you do a lot of projects. I know you work with schools, you work with after-school art programs.
Well, years ago, when we were first formed, we were really, and still continue to this day, to be strong advocates for arts and education. Very, very important. We've done a number of projects with older youth, and we were, several years ago, we're told the best place to reach young people is when they're really young. You've got to start doing art programs for children in elementary schools. So today we do art programs, after-school art programs in 8 Hollywood elementary schools.
Oh, you do?
And all
That's
of our,
a lot, 8.
It's 8, and all of our schools are Title I schools, which means that the majority of the population, their families, live at or below the poverty level.
Oh, well, see, people wouldn't think of that in
No.
Hollywood, would they? Who sponsors those programs?
Well, it's a project that We do our fundraising to support. We
Your council?
We're out there raising funds. We're happy. We've received a grant from the ARIL Foundation, from Bank of America Foundation, from the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce Foundation.
So commercial sponsorship comes into play.
Absolutely. And we've got wonderful support from our Hollywood business community. We have Paramount Pictures, Eastman Kodak, and many of the people that are really doing developments in Hollywood now are stepping up and really supporting things that are important to the community.
Do you work with any of the neighboring cities in collaboration on any projects?
Well, we're sort of, so a neighboring city would certainly be West Hollywood, and Beverly Hills is a little farther west for us.
What about the Valley? That's not close, is it?
The Valley, again, with the needs that we have in our immediate community of Hollywood, we always are interested in various kinds of partnerships, whatever we can, and we are part of the overall Los Angeles arts community.
I see. Because what I was thinking is, since it was so successful for Hollywood, why don't other little communities start arts councils like this? Because it does interest tourists. It interests everyone to come in. I mean, your projects, of course, take care of the people in your community, but other people are coming into Hollywood. People come from all over the world to come into Hollywood, the space, right?
Well, yes.
And so could that work for, say, Covina, the space?
Well, I think that it certainly can, and I believe very strongly that all communities should, and people, that it's not necessarily about, it's about the people coming together and really being committed to furthering the arts in their community and finding a place where either they can find exhibit space for artists, or is the need for arts education and going into the schools. Where is the need, and maybe they need to bring in a theater company. Maybe they need to bring a theater company from Hollywood to do something out in their area. I mean, that might be something that you're talking about.
That's what I was talking about.
Different kinds of exchanges.
Yes, collaboration and working together, because you've got so much to offer from your area that I'm sure it could transfer to other places too.
Well, I would love to see that. I mean, after 30 years, yes, we should start to multiply a little bit here.
Let's do some outreach here. What about the other projects? I know one of the things is the Jazz Pilgrimage. Tell us a little bit about that.
The Jazz Pilgrimage is a project that we did for more than 10 years at the John Anson Ford Amphitheater, where we really focused on jazz artists, jazz as an American art form. And that project, I'd always say, that's a place where adults can come and have a great evening. And again, it was a fundraiser for the Arts Council.
Oh, it was.
We would get sponsorships to underwrite the cost of it. And then we'd have a wonderful evening and acknowledge the artists, a jazz artist. The other project that we are doing is our Charlie Awards, which we've been doing for 22 years.
And tell me about that. I have a Charlie. I wish I owned one. This is so nice.
Well, I tell people when I stand up, I say, there's a way that you can get the award. It will cost you.
Oh.
We give the award for contributions of merit to Hollywood and its arts. And although we might give a theater arts award or a visual arts award, it's not necessarily for an award for excellence. There are great many organizations that do that. Certainly the Academy Awards that does it for film, and the Ovation Awards that do it for theater. But we give the award, we look around and see the difference that a theater group might be making, or a project. Some of our, last year we gave Entourage, the series.
A TV show?
A TV show, because of its depiction of Hollywood and this group of young men, and they use Hollywood as, almost as their set. Our first Cinematic Arts Award was given to Chaplin, the movie, for its depiction of Charlie Chaplin's studio.
And his studio was right there in Hollywood.
And it's still there.
And it's still
there. This year we are doing our annual, incorporating our awards with our 30th anniversary gala, which we are having at the Jim Henson Studios, which is the old Charlie Chaplin studio.
It is the old Charlie
Chaplin. La Brea and Sunset Boulevard. So, La Brea and Sunset. So we're bringing the old, we're bringing the new, and we're really launching as we celebrate 30 years.
Do individuals get this award?
This year, and this is like one of the
This
first
is a
announcements. This is a secret.
Okay, don't tell anyone, just me.
One thing, this year we are giving special recognition. Our special recognition award usually goes to an individual, and this year we're giving it to our councilman, Tom LaBonge.
Tom has been great.
He's been he's not only is a wonderful in serving his constituents, but he's just such a supporter of Hollywood in all of its forms, and the city of Los Angeles.
And he's also very interested in the arts. When they did the dedication of the Chris Burden light lampposts out in front of the new LA County Museum, Tom brought some pumpkin bread.
Oh,
and
yes.
He said, this pumpkin bread is made by nuns under the Hollywood sign. He got a good plug-in for his area.
Yes.
And is that true? There's a group up there?
And it's a sort of a little known. Yes, it's a monastery of Carmelite nuns, and they have a wonderful little gift shop. You can go in there and you can buy the pumpkin bread, or if you choose, there's a chapel and you can go and attend mass. But they are cloistered. When you think of it, and it's just literally a few blocks off of Franklin. It's not like exotically placed up in the hills. It's really down, and so I always think when I go by there that, there they are all praying for our souls, and I think that probably there's many of us that do need it.
And that was great that he brought that to the forefront, and people heard about it, and they heard Hollywood and the Hollywood sign, and there were people here from all over Europe, at that dedication. So it was great. Are you going to make a documentary of the things you've done in your community?
Well, that sounds like another good project.
That's what I thought.
I do have on our board a gentleman who used to be with KCET and who is a television producer, Julian Fowles, and he is after me to get together as much footage and information through these 30 years. It's time now to really, it's sort of like a history project that is turning, or like you said, the documentary. There's, to start gathering what we have and see what we can put together.
You must have a big archive, though.
We do.
And so he would have to go through and fix
Someone
it.
would have to go
or
through
he would have to,
and look at some of the old footage, because if we had some footage on maybe a project that we did, we've stuck it on a videotape and it's in our cupboard. So we do have things there that I'm sure we could put something very interesting together.
Well, the next time you come back, I want to see the documentary.
You've got a deal there. We will be doing something for our 30th anniversary in terms of our history, and so maybe they will have that ready for them.
Okay, great. Thanks, Nyla. And be sure you say hello to Oscar, who also is on the council, your husband.
Yes.
Thank you. And thank you for watching the Joan Quinn Profiles. Send me an email at jaquinn1@aol.com, 777 South Figueroa, 44th floor, Los Angeles 90017. We'll see you next time.